Hello there, it's Harry here with episode 40 of the Animation Industry Podcast. Now, today's episode is going to get a little bit not safe for work, so you have been warned. The guest I'm having on today is a super rad 2D animator who's made stuff for Adult Swim, Cartuna, Teen Titans Go, Tigtone, Little Big Awesome, Pickle and Peanut, Regular Show, Stone Quackers, Lucas Brothers Moving Company, and more. But first, I have a sponsored message to share with you. It comes from my friends over at Bloop Animation, which is an online learning platform packed with premium online video courses for aspiring animation filmmakers. They have courses for all major animation programs like Maya, Animate CC, Toon Boom, Blender, TVPaint, and many others, as well as some non-software courses like a storyboarding course, animation foundations course, and even one about making graphic novels, which covers absolutely everything you need to know from start to finish. The courses are all in video form, so there's no deadlines or application process. You simply just pick a course and start learning in seconds. They even offer a free ebook titled Making an Animated Short, which covers their entire process step by step of how they made one of their films, from coming up with the idea to storyboarding, animation, and all the way to exporting the film. And you can get that book completely free at bloopanimation.com/animationindustry. And you can check out their complete course library at bloopanimation.com/courses, and I'll include both those links in the description of this podcast. Now, back to today's guest. So today I'm chatting with Sean Glaze, or if you know him on the internet as Lord Spew, who is a Los Angeles-based 2D animation generalist who makes his own unique brand of raunchy, hyper, guilty pleasure cartoons using his all-in-one production team skill set. So he specializes in writing, directing, voice acting, storyboarding, designing, animating, composing, sound designing, and editing his own shorts, which are then released across social media as well as television. So Sean is also storyboarding on Teen Titans Go right now and has also worked on storyboarding, writing, and animating for networks like Warner Brothers, Netflix, Disney XD, Amazon, Fox, Comedy Central, Viceland, Cartoon Network, and Adult Swim, which I mentioned before. He has also art directed and created the main style of an Adult Swim pilot called Chuck Deuce with Shadow Machine, and he continues to develop and pitch shows and web content frequently. But the main thing that ties his body of work together is his desire to add humor to every step of the process, and as he says, it can always get funnier. So Sean, thank you so much for coming on this podcast. How is it going?
Yeah, man, I'm excited, and thank you for asking me on. I appreciate the interest into me, I guess. I guess I wouldn't. It doesn't happen that often. I don't get asked to do very many podcasts, so it's nice to. I don't know. It's nice to be asked, and
yeah. Well, I saw an interview with you that you posted on your Instagram. I've been following you for quite some time because of your ridiculous humor. And you just had a really interesting take and story on how you got into what you do now. So I thought I'd ask you to be on, and you were like, yeah, man. So yeah, let's talk about that. So you basically get paid to make like short, ridiculous, adult themed animations from your living room. And from the looks of it, it sounds like, or it looks like you can just make whatever comes to mind. So I want to talk about how you do all that, from how you pitch something that you are interested in, think that's going to hit, to executing it and everything in between. So first of all, why did you choose animation as your career path out of all the zillion things you could do in the world?
I think that I sort of happened on to it. It's a combination of accident and practicality. I think it was sort of a combination of, like, I did fine art when I was younger, and I was always like really focused on making impressive, detailed work. But the problem was I don't think I really had fun doing it. I think I sort of did what I thought other people wanted to see. And like, look at me, I'm a fine artist. And I think that what ended up happening is I started, when it came down to like having to be in a thing where I'm working every day on something and wanting to go home after classes or after work and doing more, I realized that the sustainability maybe wasn't there, and I had to try to find what I would want to do long term, and the thing that I would want to do when I come home at night. And so I ended up realizing that like I was like painting, and then like for fun I was like making these stupid shitty cartoons to make my friends laugh.
Yeah.
And like even when I and like I was still sort of on the fence about what I wanted to do, but I started taking animation classes, and I was still sort of some because I started paying to go to school, so I was like in art school, and like do I feel weird about like making fine art, like, or like, hold on, do I feel weird about like making immature cartoons I would show to my friends instead of fine art cartoons? And so for a while I was trying to make like fine art beautiful animation, and a I had this moment where I was working on my junior thesis, and I was trying to make something like beautiful or some profound or something, and I couldn't like crack it. I couldn't find something that like I really really wanted to do, and I ended up going on Christmas break. And during that time, I animated this or I storyboarded this little sequence of just like this guy with a fist for a head powering up like Dragon Ball Z style, and all his parts are turning into fists, and then he like smashes a bunch of people. And like it was just to make my friends laugh as a joke. Like I was like, but I realized like I had taken my own time and I was working on that stuff, and like in classes I was working on something that I didn't even care about. And I realized that even that I might have to get over the idea that like, hey, I'm working on something fun, but it's immature and my teachers might not like it, but it's fun for me. And so I started making cartoons that were funny. And I still do some fine art here and there. It kind of shows up when I have to paint a background in one of my cartoons, but that's sort of how I decided like that's the accidental way that I decided. The practical way was sort of like and the reason why I signed up to take classes at the University of the Arts anyway um, was because I was painting, and I was like, how am I going to make a living as a painter, man? Like what, in like 10 years, maybe I'll be one of the top painters in the city and I'll have some gallery show and I'll sell paintings for it. But what about in between then? And I started looking into animation, and I realized it's one of the only art forms uh, that have like this thing where they do a mass hire, and then they keep you on for a long period of time. Like for these seasons of shows, they need like 50, 60 people a lot of times to make the show work. And to make a season of a show, sometimes it takes a full year. And I was so used to seeing like, maybe like illustration designs, graphic design jobs, and everything is like so freelanced and one off. But like animation seemed really sustainable. Like it was like there are a lot of shows and there are a bunch of studios, and it would be something that people are in need of. And so I ended up sort of deciding also for the money of it, for how to live and create a career, that maybe to do animation instead of painting or something.
Right. Okay. Well, I do want to talk about how you've kind of made a career out of making these, like you said, shittier cartoons.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't think
yeah.
that, well, compared to like a fine arts perspective, but I want to know who or what were you trying to impress when you were doing school and you were trying to do like a super fine arts job with your work?
I mean, part of it was because my family has a lot of fine artists in it. Like not famous, but like if you go to my grandparents' house, there's paintings that members of the family have all made, and they're beautiful, beautiful paintings. And I grew up like in a family where my grandpa was an opera singer, and my like great uncle was a painter, and my great grandfather was a painter, and my mom painted, and my dad did graphic design. And so there was all these like sort of fine arts sort of influences there. But also like I I had a thing when I was younger where I needed to, I never felt like I was like super like popular, and so like I really poured myself into like my work ethic and school and being good at things, and trying to work on myself and make myself better and more impressive. And so I think that at that age, it was probably me just uh trying to be someone worth noticing, or someone that people could look at and say like, oh, like in the yearbook he's most likely to be an artistic painter or whatever, like voted most artistic. uh and so I think that I was like the art kid in school.
Right.
And so or as people in my school would call me, they'd say like he's a drawer. uh and so uh I think that was part of it. It was, I don't think it was anyone specifically. I think it was probably something just I had to overcome in myself, because like I always watched cartoons when I was small, but I never like I guess it took me a while to see myself as somebody that like could go to school, could go to college for making cartoons about butts and explosions and
Right.
boobs and shitting, and like I'm in college classes like making cartoons where everybody's exploding with blood, and like pouring all this money into that, and like that a silly thing to pay for? Yeah, but like I mean, I guess it worked out. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you said you kind of used art as the way to get attention, um, and really develop and work on yourself. Do you still feel that way now that you have turned it into a career and you do get attention and you do get paid for it?
I
Do you
mean,
still have those feelings?
I mean, starting when I was young, um, I felt like I was really shy, and so I found these tricks to like make myself seem more social, or make myself uh like it's like I didn't know what to talk about, and so I would make things to talk about. And so like I would make a drawing that I could bring into school and show people and say like, yo, like I drew Vegeta, and like, you guys like Dragon Ball Z, right? And they're like, oh, yo, that's dope, how did you do that? And like, well, like, whatever, like,
I'm
oh,
just trying to befriend you.
and in my heart I'm like, boom, 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 they're talking to me like, like I'm new at this school and they think I'm a drawer. And so I think that was a big part of it. Like I think I still do it a little bit today. I sort of will make things, and I mean there are periods of times there are periods of time when I feel like I have trouble talking to people, because I don't have a new thing I'm working about to, like, it makes me feel like I'm more interesting when I have something I'm making, which it sounds weird, but I guess it sounds weird when I say it, but I don't know if it's weird to me normally. It's just how I normally am. It's one of the reasons why, like I mean, like I said, I started out like sending funny stuff to my friends. Like that's how I interact with people on Twitter. Like they'll post something, and then I'll draw a response, or I'll like roast them with a drawing and then post that. And like it's
Yeah.
sort of how I interact with people. It's like my language that I speak a little bit. So
Well, I think that's fairly common. Like I feel that myself, and that's a large part of why art and like creativity to me is important, because it helps me connect with others in a way that I don't feel in other areas of my social life, I guess. Because for me, when I make something, I'm taking something that's like deeply personal inside of my mind and trying to explain it through a story or a joke or something like that. And when people connect with it online, it makes me feel really like, yeah, like good. So
Same here. I'm trying to tell these meaningful inside uh introspective things about farts
I was
and
just gonna
shitting
ask that.
yourself and getting a boner and
I just want to express these so bad to other people.
I mean, maybe that's my depth, man. Maybe that's what I think is deep. I don't know. I think that it's enough for me to like I like making stuff. One of the reasons why I describe my cartoons as sort of guilty pleasure is because like I like when my cartoons or my jokes sort of sneak up on you and they make you laugh before you have a chance to think about how stupid it was. Like I want to make people laugh at something and then be like, man, I thought I was more mature than to laugh at something like that.
So
Like,
can you
you
give me
know,
like a specific example of something you've done in that? Like I can probably think of a few.
I mean, there's a short that I did called Tool Tim for Adult Swim that like I think might be the stupidest thing that I've ever made. It's a 3 minute parody of Home Improvement with Tim Allen. And the whole thing is about him he's building a coffin in the house. And he's making a show around it, but the coffin is so dangerous that it keeps killing members of his family, and like his goth son gets sucked up into the gears by one of his chain bracelets or whatever. And like and it's hard for me to even explain the plot in any sort of like if I was to submit it to a film festival, trying to write up a little thing about it to make it sound good is like impossible. But like I really like or for instance, I have a short that's I'm trying to remember the lyrics of it. I made a song about it's these two this couple that is the guy is meeting his girlfriend's parents for the first time, and they ask like what are your intentions with my daughter, and the lyrics in it are like, I don't want to be tied down unless you're talking kinky. The only ring I want around my fingers brown and fucking stinky. And she's sitting on his finger with her butthole. And and it's like the stupidest thing that I could have fucking done, but like I think it catches you off guard and you don't expect it, and it's like what's happening, and, whatever. And like I like that kind of stuff that like you wouldn't want people to know that you think is funny. Like I like.
Are you writing in Korea? Because you also put a lot of effort into your animations. Are you thinking of a specific person in mind, or like you're like, I want, I don't know, people at 3 a.m. who are kind of high to laugh at this, or I just want my friends to laugh at this, or I think this is risky enough that like Adult Swim will take it on. Like, what is the
I
intention when you're
I
creating
I
something like that?
so I do like, I like making things that feel fucked up, but but also have a sincerity behind them, like where these people are sort of like talking about what they feel in their heart, but they're like naked and have a boner, or like they're shitting but they're talking about something meaningful, or what, like like I like making stuff that is for adults, but it's like immature. I also, that being said, I also don't like super offensive cartoons, and
Just for, you mean offensive for the sake of being offensive,
offensive for
without.
the sake of being offensive. Like cartoon, I also am not super big into when cartoons like have a whole bunch of people just getting slaughtered, just mindless violence. I like, the thing is I like I have a rule where in my cartoons, people die, I usually need it to be a joke. Like I need it to have a joke along with it. I need the character to have a funny catchphrase when he punches through them or whatever. It needs to be funny for me. And same thing with like with things where it's like pushing the limits a little bit.
Yeah.
I make rules for myself, and like I like things that feel like they're almost too close to that edge, but there's a way to explain it. A good example is right now I'm working on a short with my character Fisthead, and I wanted to make this villain that he wasn't allowed to touch or like hit or like because in the other cartoon that I had made, he kills everybody by punching them, and so I wanted to have a character that he wasn't allowed to kill through violence, and so he's jumping through the city and he jumps down onto a ledge and there's this little boy, and the little boy's like basically he's like, what do you want, my autograph? And the little boy is like, can you put your fist in my little boy asshole? And I'm like, and he's like, whoa, what? And like, and the little boy starts chasing him on this balcony, and then it closes up on this little boy's face, and he has stubble, and he's like this 50-year-old villain that looks like a little boy who's trying to frame him for touching a little kid. And he's like, I'm a 50-year-old man, but those concerned mothers over there don't know that. And it zooms over all these mothers with their phones and they're about to dial 911. And then it zooms back and he's like, you're never going to be a superhero again after I ruin your career for touching a kid. And so the whole fight is Fisthead trying to dodge. This little boy is trying to touch Fisthead's hands with his crotch, and Fisthead's dodging. It's like a fight scene where Fisthead's dodging all of the attacks instead of being able to fight this kid. And the thing is it's fucked up. But you do see like the loopholes that I've made where it's like actually a 50-year-old man, and it's the boy that's attacking him instead of the other way around, and he doesn't want to like fight the boy, and like there's all these like little things that I sort of like I'm walking the line, and to me that's very important. Like I want things to be like, whoa, I think that's too fucked up, but like when you actually analyze it, it's like it's legal.
Like when the lawyers got the books out.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
You know, you asked me if you could swear on this podcast, but now I'm just gonna have to mark this as not safe for work before people listen to it.
But that's the thing. And the thing is no touching ever happens in it. What ends up happening is he ends up hugging the boy, and then all the mothers are like, oh, that must be his father. And then Fisthead and the boy says, the boy's like, oh, this is my first smile. And he has a little smile and a tear runs down his cheek. And then Fisthead does a really tight squeeze and he screams, kill him with kindness. And the kid's head explodes. And that's the end.
Okay.
And that's okay.
No need to call 911 anymore.
No need to call 911 anymore. Well, the moms have already turned around. Like, it's fine. Like, they all turn around at once. Like, all these mothers, they all like, oh, that must be his father. And they all turn around. So, I mean, like, but that's what I mean as far as like I like things that are like fucked up, but I also like I am in punk bands and metal bands that are in this sort of PC, politically correct culture, and I try to function as best as I can within that sort of constraint, even if I push it a little bit,
So let me ask you this. All right. So for my situation, I'm in school right now at Sheridan, and there's like I have a lot of other classmates who are in school too, obviously, but there's like a lot of subconscious pressure to like make that Disney safe, like really great animated thing, and for your thesis and follow like the formula. How do you break, like, for instance, if I were to animate something like you just described, I don't know how it would be received in school or like by mentors and things. So how do you kind of do that thing that you want to do if that's your thing, or just regardless of what your thing is, and also have like the confidence and foresight to turn it into a career, because that's essentially what you've done. Like a lot of people would, I say, like play it safe, you know?
Hmm. I mean, I especially see that in animation school. And the thing is like my teachers didn't like my films. Um, they didn't. They thought they gave me a lot of notes and they would like give me a lot of advice on the jokes. And I'm like, I think I'm funnier than you, so I don't. I'm not going to tell. You know, like I would take some like animation notes from them, but as far as like this, I personally see value in more economic animation. Also, sometimes the key for me is just making a sustainability in your content and in your shorts, like if you're making them. So like if you set the standard so high for yourself that you're never able to finish anything, then what good is that doing? And if you approach every single thing that you're doing like it's a portfolio piece, then uh then you'll never make anything. And I see that that's a problem that I see in a lot of fresh graduates is they put everything they can into their senior or their junior senior thesis, and then like they graduate and then they're like, okay, so like everything I make from now on has to be like good enough to be a portfolio piece. And like the only art that they want to put out is basically the art in their head that they would make in like 20 years. And and for me, I usually uh I usually sort of stand by the whole like if it works and it's funny, like sort of put it out. Like it doesn't have to be perfect, it doesn't have to be like Disney quality. I personally like finding reasons within my shorts to do that. Like I'll make an excuse for a really dope transformation scene here, or uh like uh like I'll make an excuse for an action sequence like at the end of something. But I use a lot of economic style animation uh, that allows me to tell my stories and to tell jokes, but not everything needs to feel like a portfolio piece. I think that also the thing is if you do that and you're putting out enough stuff, you just end up like getting better, and before you know it, your worst like most limited work could be a portfolio piece. It's more about just continuing to make things that make you feel good.
Right.
And um and sometimes it's about just following what your own style is. And I mean, and for some people their own style is completely fluid, beautiful animation, and that's great, but you also have to figure out like, am I able to put out work like this? Am I able to like design a short form thing around this moment that I want to create? Or for instance, like what I see a lot of times is like somebody that's like that does very beautiful animation, and they have a few shots that are very beautifully animated, but they fill out space with having long atmospheric shots where it's like a nicely rendered background with, and they have some trees blowing. It's like you start figuring out ways to loop things, and you can loop them fluidly. Like I do a lot of like small loops, uh, and it might be animated nicely, but it's still a loop. It's still finding a way to be economic.
So let me ask you this. So what you're saying is kind of find your place with being economical in certain areas, or like go above and beyond in other areas. But when you first got your job, how did you get it? Did you spend a lot of time working on those portfolio pieces, or was it previous? I know that your fist head video like got you a lot of attention when you were first starting animating. So how did you kind of break in yourself?
One of the ways that I broke in was just putting shorts online that I did, not being afraid to just put them out there everywhere that I could. And I mean, there are people at these companies uh, that it's their whole job to find new animators online that make work that people like. And usually I think it's worthwhile to, like, when you're searching for jobs, um, to make it a little bit easier on yourself by, like, alternatively, it's just you looking for jobs. But if you put things online, then there's a chance that somebody will meet you halfway and they'll find your work. So my first jobs were somebody finding my short, and they wanted me to pitch some shorts to them, or they wanted me to make shorts for their YouTube channel. Um, uh, but yeah, I think were there two parts to your question?
Sure, but I'm wondering maybe you can explain how you got Teen Titans Go as a storyboarding gig, because that seems to me like a little bit of um, kind of different than your usual like short, quirky, self-animated things.
Basically, the way that it normally works when I'm like trying to balance doing my own work and doing work on other shows is I try to maintain a certain level of freelance where I'm making my own work. So normally, like, I would work on shorts of my own, but recently I've been trying to shift towards getting paid to make my own ideas, which requires a certain amount of pitching. So sort of like making freelance on my terms. So I do sort of like freelance that are cartoons sort of in my style. And lately I've been working jobs storyboarding or storyboarding and writing on shows, doing studio jobs, because it's a more consistent line of work. And one of the reasons I try to keep up and maintain putting out work that looks like mine, even when it's freelance, is because I think that it makes more of a probability of getting those other jobs if people see the kind of work that you do, and that looks like you, and when people can really tell you have a voice, a lot of times they want you on their productions and to get a little flavor of what you're doing. So as far as Teen Titans Go, a lot of the people that knew me on Teen Titans Go knew me from my shorts online and from my own content that I make, along with being there are a few friends that I met along the way. And so the big reason why I was hired on Teen Titans Go is a combination of knowing some people that work there, but also having people know my work. And I remember like going in and they wanted to do a live interview, and they told me, like, yeah, like, we love your work, but like we needed to make sure we were hiring a crazy person. And so, and so like I went and I was like, I get it. Like, my website, on the front of my website, there's a video, and it's like my hair blowing in the wind, and then there's like a
It's
butt
amazing. I've seen
shit.
it.
And so like they were like, just even from that, we were like, we have to make sure that we're hiring somebody that like isn't a crazy person. I was like, I get it, but for the most part, I try to let my work speak for itself, you know.
So, okay, so it sounds like you're doing like the storyboarding and stuff is like business, and then your hobby slash where you want to go in the future is kind of the pitching. So, if you had unlimited resources right now, what would you do? Would you make a whole bunch of short little films, or would you do like a feature or a TV show? Like, what is it that you're trying to get to eventually?
I mean, what I would probably do is create a maybe like a web series, like a web series that's episodic. I think that I do the shorts because they're like fun one-off sketches that that I can pitch pretty fast, and the sort of people's attention spans, it serves people's fast attention spans. But I really do want to make more work that that makes you love the characters,
Right.
and where you
So,
follow along. So I would probably make like a few web series, or I mean, I'd be down to make a show. I think that a lot of times um the way to get a show, or most the easiest way to convince a company like, like Netflix or Cartoon Network or whatever, to like pick up your thing, is by having this proof of concept, which I'm able to do. I'm able to make these shorts, and so we would either be making a series of shorts about a character on my own, or it would be creating a few different almost like almost like pilot shorts that could lead to a TV show. I mean, I wish I had more time, because I have a few
yeah.
ideas right now that I want to build out and make a short that I can use to help pitch. But I
Well,
mean, I love internet cartoons, man. Like I
so, so you have the consistent like 9 to 5 kind of job, and then on the side you're spending your free time pitching these short things. What's stopping you from keeping that consistent thing and then turning your current short pitches into working on something bigger, like a bigger pitch for a series? Like, what's stopping you from doing that?
I mean, nothing's stopping me from doing it. The bigger pitches just take longer. I mean, I have one thing right now that is in the middle of contracts, where I'm about to sign a development contract for a certain Bible that I had been working on for the last year, like developing.
Congrats on that. That's awesome.
Thank you. I
It's
mean,
huge.
it's strange because like it's I'm going to be working with a company that basically develops a really uh full vision of a pitch. Like, it's sort of like they take a Bible and then they help fund you to make a short out of it, and do a small cast and pair you with like a lead writer, and build your Bible bigger, and they fund you to write like a Bible script, or sorry, a pilot script. And
Wow.
so and then that would be with this company pitched to Netflix or something like that.
How do you even get involved in that in the first place? Like, do you have to pitch to them and then, or is it some like you just knew somebody?
In this case, I knew the head of the company. I had worked with them before, and
I see.
they had told me before that they had wanted to work with me. and
Gotcha.
and it's sort of like every once in a while you develop these relationships with people that and you're just shooting the shit about an idea, and they end up saying like whoa, like I really like that idea. At some point I may have the ability to help you make it, and this is the rare occasion when that that happened, when uh so I am in the process of going back and forth with about the contracts for that right now. And in addition, like I have a few other Bibles that I've been working on. And so that's the thing. I think like recently I've sort of started to try to make a move towards investing in myself again, investing time in myself. And like at the beginning of this year, I took a few weeks and I made a bunch of shorts pitches and I sent them out, and I got some freelance where I was writing my own shorts. And when I first came out here, I was pitching a lot, and it comes like maybe every 2 years I'll get like the courage up to pitch a bunch again, and I'll pitch like 3 shows, like to a bunch of different studios. Right now, I have one that's the one that I was just talking about vaguely. It's called Vampires. It's about vampires that live in a van. And separately, I have one that I have been pitching with Titmouse Studios. I partnered the head of Titmouse Studios, Chris Bernosky, has been working with me to pitch this other, like, it's almost like a home movie style. It's like Beavis and Butthead, but if they were anime weebs, like watching anime, commenting on it, and like taking anime too seriously and then trying to apply it to their lives and things like that. And like everything in the TV would be much better drawn than what's outside. Like they almost look like home movies style, like shitty drawings, and they're watching. And what it would do, what we've been doing is like trying to pitch it to companies that already have license to anime. So you know, like Netflix, like Adult Swim, like these places that already show anime and could conceivably already have the license to put a clip of that anime that already exists in there, and then it would add validity to fake anime that we make, like right next to it that they're watching. So we've been pitching that. I think we're trying to pitch to Crunchyroll, but I mean the thing is like the thing that I'm just sort of having going through into development now. Like I was pitching that 4 or 5 years ago with a different, it was like a group of like 4 friends, and that were having like one-off adventures in a van, and now it's a family
into vampires.
Well, no, not now. Well, no. They were vampire. There was 4 vampire friends. Now it revolves around one main character and his family, and so it's like more of like a vampire family sitcom, and he inherits this van, and he has to become a vampire, and it's like, but it's like, these things develop over years, and sometimes you go into a pitch and it's just not the right combination of things, and it's not what they're looking for. And so a lot of this stuff, the reason why I have trouble allowing myself to put too much into it is because a lot of this stuff takes like at Cartoon Network, the period of time in between developing when you pitch to them something and they like it and decide to like develop it and turn it into a pilot, the period of time in between the start of development and a short pilot is 3 years usually. It takes 3 years just to make like the short pilot, which isn't even the full pilot. It's like a short proof of concept. And so all these things just take a long time. And like I've had periods of time when I, like, for instance, I was working on a pilot with Adult Swim a few years back, and I got it all the way up to casting, and we had finished the storyboards, and we had a design team, a small design team already working on it, and then Adult Swim decided that they wanted to shelve it.
Oh no.
I mean, and so
did you feel? How did you feel when that happened? It sounds like it was very exciting, and then
yes, the worst part of it, I think, was having to tell the people who, like, I got them jobs on my show. Like I hired friends of mine on my show, and I was responsible for their salaries, and like I had to tell them that like we didn't have jobs right now. and that was the worst part. And it also, like, I feel like things like that always happen all at once. And like when that happened, I was also I don't know if I should call it let go from another job, but it was a job where I was not full time yet, and there was like a period of uh, you would storyboard 3 episodes, and they decide whether they want to do a fourth.
Mm.
And it was a job that I thought I had, and then that kind of went away, and then at the same time my pilot got canceled, and I was like, oh, like I just like I remember like not being able to draw for 2 months or something like that. I had to like refind my balance
Okay,
because you start realizing is like at my absolute, like when I'm trying my absolute hardest, is it even enough? And then I started to realize, like, even if I'm like going into a forest and I'm like trying my absolute hardest and running my absolute fastest in this one direction, that doesn't always mean that I was running in the right direction. Like I could go as far as I want in that one way, but like if you're not like on the right path, then like it doesn't matter. So I started realizing, I think that just wasn't like, I just wasn't doing it the right way. I can try again, and I can do it differently, and I can still try my hardest, but I have to learn from it and try to figure out how to do better next time. And
yeah. I like how you put the running in the forest. It doesn't matter how fast you run, you might be going nowhere.
yeah, man, you might be going just in the wrong way, and
Yeah.
so that's I
So,
mean, it can get to your head, man.
yeah, I want to chat about maybe as like the last kind of big topic we talk about, the Cartuna and Adult Swim pitch process and cycle, because from my perspective, it seems like the process there is much shorter. Like you pitch a really quick idea. I don't know how long it takes for them to say go for it, send you the funds, you make it in like I
Yeah.
don't know, a couple of weeks, and then it's done, right? Like so can you kind of go through maybe something recently you did with like Adult Swim, maybe the gargoyle
Oh, okay.
spot, just as an example? So like
Yeah, man.
explain what
Yeah.
it is and then how it came about.
Okay. So for instance, Adult Swim has like 15-second shorts that they have artists do, and it gives the artists a lot of creative control. And like it's basically like they're making a full short themselves, but it's 15 seconds. And usually for a pitch like that, I don't really pitch one. I'll pitch like 6, and for each one of those I'll have a separate sheet and a write-up of the main way that it goes, and then some sample drawings for the look of it, and like just enough to sell that it's funny. And for the last one, I pitched 6 and they picked 3. So like I pitched a bunch of like, I pitched one that was like there's this like weird niche fetish called vor, which is just someone eating someone else slowly and swallowing them. So there's all these like weird 3D animated videos online where it's like a 3D tiger swallowing a person very slowly and not chewing them. And so I had a bumper that was just like lights flashing, "You are now watching vor," and it was just like an animation of someone slowly being swallowed by like a hippopotamus or something like that. And I just thought it was funny because it was like showing a form of porn, but it could be on TV because there's no nudity and there's no, like, they're not actually like chomping them, you know what I mean? So like I pitched that, and I pitched one that was like trying, it was like one that was trying to make up new memes, but they were all like bad and stupid, and like sort of the main character was like a drawing of an average teen, and he's like explaining to you all these like weird memes that aren't real. And but so one of the ones that went through was this one called "Gargoyles Don't Have to Look Cool." And it was just the pitch was like, there's these cool looking gargoyles and they transform from stone and fly off, and then there's one that just looks like a rock with with like a smiley face on it, and that crumbles, and then it's just like this little pink guy, and he like falls off the building. And so I would send them those, and then they'd pick them, and then
So how long does it take you to conceptualize these each? Like, do you do them like all at once in an afternoon and you're good to go?
usually it helps if I have a deadline. Most of the time when I ask for these pitches, I don't have an idea
Yeah.
before the like I'll ask them if they want pitches, and they'll say
So
yeah.
you just
And
email like Adult Swim at hello@adultswim.com. Hey guys, you taking pitches? I got some ideas.
not always. There's specific channels that you have to go through, or sometimes you can feel it out. Like I know some people over there, and like I'll be like, hey, do you know if they're like looking for any right now? And I'll sort of like try to
Okay,
read the
so
atmosphere
like I,
first.
for
Like
instance, couldn't like go on after our chat and be
usually
like,
not.
"Hi,
No.
Adult Swim on Twitter."
I mean, but that's the thing, is sometimes that could work sometimes if you
All right.
like there are animators that has worked for, they just have to have that right thing at that moment that
Yeah.
makes Adult Swim laugh, or whoever's monitoring that computer. But so like I'll do that pitch, and then they'll say, okay, we like this one, make this one. And so then I'll usually do either a script or a storyboard first, and then I'll do the storyboard, and usually I'll do a production still too, and I'll send them the production still, and I'll send them the storyboard, and say, like, this is what this looks like, this is how I want it to go. And usually with the storyboard, I do a rough sound pass too, especially if there's any lines in it, because that doubles as like the script too for them to approve, because they can do notes. They're they're I've had ones in the past where I'm really glad that I did that, because for instance, there's a Harvey Birdman holiday special one bumper that I made, where they gave the note after I pitched the initial thing, that it was just too far off of the Harvey Birdman style, like what was happening. And so I scrapped everything that I had, and I went back and I said, okay, like, what is the style of Harvey Birdman? It's mostly um it's mostly dialogue related. And for me, that's very hard, because a lot of my stuff is very visual. It's visual gags, it's crazy, it's hyper, whatever. And so I was watching the holiday special, and in the holiday special, there's a running theme of Harvey has retired, and he writes like trashy thriller novels, and they all have like puns in the name. And so I was like, okay, what if I pitch them like 8 different like trashy thriller novels that Harvey Birdman wrote, and then Harvey Birdman is on the cover in each of the novels with it, like it's all gun and games, and like it's like somebody trying to play basketball, but guns are being shot at their feet, or it's like Harvey Birdman trying to dodge, or like um like it's like danger on a trolley, and like it's like he's like on a trolley, and it's all like noir, and like and so it was all these like covers of a book, and like each cover was animated with a slight loop. And so that's what I ended up going with, but it was because of a note that they did. And I, like, by having those like incremental steps of approval, I didn't get too far into the project before they realized that they didn't want anything close to what I was doing. So, and that happens, man. That does happen. I mean, for the
Yeah.
most part, they're pretty chill about like I had one of them is called Advanced Workout Techniques that came out, and it's just all of these progressively more ridiculous workout techniques, where the last one is like climb into a coffin and then ascend to a higher plane, and now it's you are in shape, you are now all shapes, and like it's like them in a 3D space coming apart and turning into shapes, like all trippy. And the note that I got back at the end of that one was just that his butt crack was out, and we had to censor it. And like, I mean, that one wasn't too bad, but sometimes sometimes there's notes, so you have to so yeah, there's usually several steps incrementally of approving these shorts before
So
you
it sounds
take
like
it
they
to.
still are quite the project when you get them, though.
Yeah. I mean, if I try really hard, I can usually get it done in 2 weeks. Like
Oh wow, okay.
from storyboards, sound design to animation,
Yeah.
I can usually
And
get them done in
just
two
so we're
weeks.
clear, like they send you like a budget and you work within it and all that stuff. Like it's like a real gig, right?
Yeah. I mean, for these ones in particular, it was like for 15 seconds, it was like $4,000, and so that's being paid to me, assuming that like I could hire other people to
Right.
do these other jobs. I mean, that's how it is in most of these cases. Like when they hire, like Adult Swim will hire Titmouse sometimes to make them, and it's assuming that like
Right.
there might be more than one person working on this thing for a week, and it's like, okay, so like 4 people each get 1,000 for a week or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but you're doing everything yourself.
Usually sometimes I can use it to pay some voice actors,
Yeah.
which I try to do, or I like to do, but yeah, it's every once in a while you get some shorts that uh don't have enough of a budget to hire anybody else, and though and I think that because of those style of shorts, I've gotten in the habit of doing everything myself. But
So you just learn
it's
over time how to get better at doing those things yourself anyways.
I mean, yeah, I mean, like I started off like my first job was on a shorts team, and we made one short every single week as a team. We made a 1 minute short almost every single week. Like I made like for 30, 40 shorts with that team, and we would trade off positions. Like I would be the director slash storyboard artist for one episode, and the director slash storyboard artist would give design notes to make it all cohesive, and then I would switch, and on the next one I would be an animator on it or a designer on it or whatever. And I did that for like my first year in animation. I was making a short with this team every single week. And so you start to learn how to do all of the individual jobs, and then how to better, come up with your visual language. Like, do I want to have characters with thick lines, and then the background has thin lines, or do I want thin lines on my characters and then lineless backgrounds that's like painted? And then is there an overall color palette in over the whole short? Like that's all stuff that when you're working with a company, you have to pitch them the like production still, like what one completed frame would look like. And once you start doing that, then you start realizing, oh, maybe I should do that for my own shorts to make it all look consistent.
So, I mean, you're working on so many things, and like you've done a lot of cool projects. You've worked on some cool TV shows. You've worked with a lot of studios. What advice would you give for somebody who is trying to follow like a similar path of developing their own unique style and really putting it out there and like making a career out of animation and being so generally skilled in many areas as you are too?
I think that the biggest key is just don't be afraid to make things and to put it out, and try to keep telling yourself that that you're going to get better, and it's okay to be where you're at, and to have people see where you're at, and have to have people see you grow, and they're going to grow with you, and see you get better. So I think the biggest thing that holds younger people back again is just being afraid to post their thing, and just make things that are short, that are to take it easy on yourself a little bit, and try to approach making short things until you can really dedicate some to work your way up to a long one, and try to work on I mean, we live in a time right now where this is the time of Instagram and 15-second shorts, and like making animation that's 15 seconds long is perfectly okay. Making a GIF that doesn't have any sound but looks like a completely finished film and is under 1 second is perfectly okay and perfectly valid. And I think that you know, try, it's good to make portfolio pieces, but don't make everything a portfolio piece. Make some things for fun. Experiment with your style in a way that you haven't before, and put out a short that doesn't look totally like the stuff that you've made before, and you'll start using that to develop your style and to grow your visual language.
Yeah, I think that's good. And I think if you always are working on their portfolio pieces, it's hard to develop your own style and voice if you only make something for fun for yourself, like once a year. Like it's gonna take 15 years before you develop that. So
And some of the best style decisions come from like a mistake, or like drawing something in a way that you wouldn't have normally done it, and then like, hey, like what if I tried, like the way that I usually try it out is I to test out if something looks like a cohesive style. If you can draw a small crowd of people that all look like they're in the same world, then you have done it. If you can draw a small room of people, including the room, in, and make it all look like it fits in the same world, then it's working. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I loved cartoons like Invader Zim or Rocko's Modern Life. Like the characters looked like the backgrounds, like everything looked like it fit. And I think coming up with even, it doesn't matter what your style is, like just coming up with one that makes everything feel like they fit in your own little language. That's important for developing as an artist.
That's a good little test. I never thought about that before, but it makes total sense. Is there anything else you'd like to share just before we wrap it up?
Yeah, when you're designing characters, make the screen really small for your first drawing, so that you don't have enough space to put a lot of detail. And then take that same drawing and blow it up and clean that up. And in my opinion, that's how you make a good animated design.
That's like an animation, to simplifying it. Yeah.
Because everyone wants to like put like all this detail in it, and it makes these unanimatable characters. Like you'll come up with a character that has strong shapes, the least possible detail that you can put into it to have it be recognizable, and then like you start cleaning up and just start, if you're going into animation, just try to become comfortable with simple drawings and learn to love simple drawings, because they're your friend, and they're the only way that you're going to finish your short.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing all your wisdom and cool stuff. And I'm definitely gonna have to mark this not safe for work.
Yeah, man. For real, if you need to take out anything,
that's completely. I'm gonna leave it all in. It's fine. Just.
If you're listening and you'd like to follow Sean's work, you can do so by looking him up on Instagram or Twitter or his website, which all go under the name Lord Spew. Or if you'd like him to look at your work and offer some feedback, or just ask him anything about getting into the industry in general, you can do so by emailing him at fistheadglaze@gmail.com. And I'll include the links to all those things in the description of this podcast. And that's all for now. Okay, bye.